with various startups, started from Unicell. Rockstand was a venture that I shaped. It was a ebook app, and then I have been with Kindle as a senior product leader, right? So Kindle was an awesome experience, which gave me a very structured way of thinking, and how to do a very structured thinking, how to be more data driven is something that Amazon taught everybody, right? So Amazon is a great place to learn that. So I've been with Oyo, and currently I'm driving a venture which is a marketplace, agri-tech marketplace, where we have built a marketplace for farmers for their agricultural needs, like if they want to buy pesticide, seeds, agrochemical, tractor, anything, any of, right? So the vision is to have everything that a farmer need for their farming. But as it goes milestone wise, as of now we are focusing more on the agri input and machinery tools, right? So that's a quick background about myself. Now we'll start with this session. I'll cover this quickly, the presentation that I have, the content that I have prepared, and then we'll move to question answers. However, you can keep throwing your questions in the chat window, and once again request all of you to be on mute, because that will help us conduct this better. Okay, so to start with, this is what I feel is the most important thing when we think about product management. These 5 Ws, right, which is a very, very basic thing, but even when we grow in our career, it's better to be connected with these basic stuff, the foundation stuff, right? And this I have seen that starting since my starting of the career, even when I was working with Amazon or Oyo, these are the 5 Ws that always we should be aware of, and we should know that what exactly, how can we relate these 5 Ws with the product roadmap that we are shaping up, right? So the first is who, for whom you are building, right? Who is your target audience is very obvious and very important thing to be aware of. And you have to go a little deeper. For example, you may say that, okay, I'm building something for farmers, but that's not sufficient. What exactly for farmers, or what exactly for youth, or for any other audience, right? Or if you're making something specifically for housewife, so what is the persona that you're targeting? So you have to go a little deeper. But yes, the broad question is that for whom are you building, right? What problem are we solving? That is again, which is at a top level, at an enterprise level, like if you're building a company, we should be very, very clear that what is the problem that we are solving. But even when we are going deeper into feature development, like the way you all drive a roadmap and keep developing new features, even at that level, you should always be knowing that if I'm launching this share feature, or if I'm launching any feature in your product, what it is intended for, what problem is it going to solve. It's very, very, if it's not clear, then we will not be able to actually measure the success later, right? So it's very, very important. And then there are many things which are important, which are good to do, which is must to do also. But we all know that with limited resources, we can't launch everything immediately, right? So why is a very, very important thing. And I think for product manager, and with my experience, this is the toughest question that we have to, any product manager need to address, that why is it important to build this particular feature. There can be a long list, right? And why I'm picking these 10 and not the next 10 is always, or question is always a debate with the engineering team, with a business team, with operations team, and all the stakeholders, right? Even from customers point of view also, we have to be very, very careful about thinking that, okay, should I be working on these 5 features, or the next 5 features, or something else, right? So this why is, I feel, is the most important factor when it is needed, the time. And where tells you that, let's say if there is a journey of a user that you have that you're driving, where exactly this feature will be positioned, right? How will that help the flow to be better, right? Where exactly it will make an impact, right? So that clarity is a must. So right, so these are the 5 Ws, very basic thing, but quickly I just covered it for this is something that is totally from my experience that I have learned, and as I told you that I don't come from an engineering background. I have learned everything at workplace, and I have grown, with that, right? So therefore, whatever I'm presenting here is more from my experience than any theories, standard theories as such, right? So the first is clarity of thought. This is something that I felt is very important for product managers, because at times we think about so many things, right? So many ideas, so many features are going on, right? So many goals are in our mind. Many stakeholders influence our thinking, right? Someone tells that, hey, this is important, someone else, right? For us, it's very important to know, to have a very clarity of thought, that, hey, what am I, what I'm going to do, right? Which is the problem that I'm going to focus, which is my goal, right? I have so many things to look after, but what is that for two, three things which is going to bring a big change, and I'm going to bring that impact as a product owner, right? So that clarity has to be there. Without clarity, you will always be confused while building your roadmap. And to get that clarity, you can't be only thinking, you have to write a lot, right? So this I'm telling with my Amazon experience, that at Amazon, that is why Amazon is driven by documents, right? Without document, so your a product leaders 80% of time goes in document writing. At times people feel that, hey, it's a boring job, but the principle behind that is that if you shape a story properly, that shows that you have a clarity of thought, right? And if you're when readers are reading your story and it is not very clear to them, that tells that still there is a lack of clarity, right? So this writing a lot is a key thing, mantra. I'll tell or suggest all of you, to be aware and to practice a lot on that writing, be it a PRD writing or a two-pager writing, a one-pager writing. How you write, how you project, that all depends on that. Do you have that clarity of that story in your mind or not? So that framing the story in your mind is very, very important, right? Know your customer. For whom are you building? For example, if someone will ask me to make a product for say ladies, in the fashion industry, probably at this point in time I don't know my customer very deeply, because I have never worked for that particular persona a lot, right? So it's very important that before we start building, we go deeper into that customer, put ourselves into their shoes, think from their perspective, right? And right, so that, and when I say customer, it's both internal and external. That is, you have to be very careful about, because external, we all know that, hey, we all are customer obsessed, and we all are building for our customers. But beyond that, your internal customer is something that you have to daily, on a daily regular basis, you have to deal with, right? Your managers, your stakeholder, like business team, the operations team, right? All are running behind you saying that, hey, please develop my feature first, solve my problem first. And you have a limitation of limited bandwidth, so you can't solve everybody's problem at a time. And therefore I say that you can't make everyone happy. So you have to be very clear that, hey, where I'm going to focus, right? So therefore, knowing your internal and external stakeholders is absolutely very, very important, right? Without that you can't earn trust of your stakeholders, be it your engineering team, be it your operations team, or business team, or whoever. Role play, I mean to say that, for example, Facebook is used by you, or it is used by me, or it is used by a farmer, or it is also used by housewives, right? So there are different personas, and a product owner need to think that, and play a lot of, that how they will be thinking, how they will be, using my product. If I've given a feature, what they understand from this feature, right? The understanding might be different by different people or by different persona, right? So a lot of role play, probably you can conduct a lot of think aloud session, where you invite some of your users to come use your product and think loud, right? That kind of session, like at Kindle, we used to do it every quarter. We used to invite some of our key customers. They used to sit in a closed room, and we used to watch them very carefully, that how they're using a product. Are they using the feature that I built for, that I developed, right? uh, how they are, perceiving the features, right? Where are the frictions that they are, facing? And then we ask them, we request them to think aloud, what they are understanding, right? So that also helps a lot. And data driven, this is the core, right? You can have so many ideas, you can have so many theories, you can have clarity, but until unless you don't have the right data, right? I feel a product owner can never succeed without a data. It's I think it's just impossible, because there can be various stories. Everybody can have their own story, but at end of the day, if it is not backed by the right data, right? When I say right, I will cover that in the next slides. That you should know that which is the right data to support you. At times there are many misleading data as well, and therefore we have to be very clear that which data to count and which is dangerous to be counted, right? So we should not get carried away by misleading data, right? So it's very important to be data driven and to know our data, that what exactly data is, right? So these are the four things I will say, that put it as a sticker in front of you, and always know that if you are not a champion of these four, in any standard, in any strong product team, it's very to get make a strong impact, because people will always start doubting us in that, without that, right? So these are, whenever anybody is interacting with us, they should perceive that, hey, he's very clear that yes, I'm working on this, and he's very clear that which I can't focus at this point in time. So that clarity should come very, very clearly. Yeah, very in a specific manner. So these are the key stakeholders that a product owners deal with in a regular at a workplace. External, that is your customers, the most important thing, and that's where we see that all product owners should be data customers obsessed, right? Where you always think about customers, you always build for customer, you always think about their problems and try to solve it, right? So but beyond that, internal is as well very important, because when you look at Amazon, for example, when you look at Amazon versus Flipkart, from user experience point of view, you may find Flipkart to be better in many aspects, right? And then people think that, hey, is the design team of Amazon is not smart enough to understand that, hey, this can be better, this design can be better, this experience can be better. But actually the fact is that they are pretty aware of that, but they are not worried of it, because that is not impacting their primary goal at this point in time, right? And that is why, even they know, after knowing that, yeah, this is a problem, this is not the best design, this is not the best user experience, they don't get worried about that, right? And therefore, knowing your internal internal stakeholders, that is engineering team, the business team, the program management team, and UX team, these are the four key team. Beyond this, basis the nature of the business, you might have many other stakeholders, right? For example, at Oyo, operations was a team which was one of the most important stakeholder for us. But that is business specific. But at a top level, if you see, these are the four internal stakeholder that any product owner deal on a regular basis, and you have to build trust with with these stakeholders. Without their contribution, without if they are not buying your points, your roadmap, it's very, very challenging to succeed in a product role, right? So and more than argument, that's where data helps you, that you can't get into argument, you have to be supported by a lot of data, with which you will be able to earn trust of these stakeholders. Yeah. uh, these are the PM's DNA that I call it as, which is basic traits that we all must carry. At times you may feel that, hey, these are the very basic thing, but I feel that if you lack in any of these traits, it will impact your performance, right? Even if you know your data very deeply, if you know your job very deeply. So it's good to be aware of these things. So you have to be very a good listener. Unless we don't listen stakeholders are expecting from us, what is the business expectation, we won't understand that, right? A lot of patience is needed, because I say that you are a boss with no report is. Normally product managers develop a roadmap which is actually developed by engineering team, right? So you might be owning the roadmap of 40 developers, but none of them reports to you, right? And that's where to make them follow your roadmap and develop that with full trust, it's very important to understand that, hey, handle them with patience, collaborate, very, closely, right? So that art is very, very important, right? So numbers, again, that's the main theme of this I'll cover in the later slides, right? Deep dive, many times I've seen in product managers to keep thinking and becoming happy, hey, I've got a very great idea, but the reality is that that idea is not going to help you only, right? Until unless you will dive deeper into that. When you dive deeper, when you'll say that, hey, this is already done, someone already experimented it and it failed because of these reasons, right? So just by simply flying with some out of box idea is not something that helps a PM in a great way. Many people I have seen and I've interviewed, right, who actually somewhere carry this, that I have great ideas, and that only doesn't help a lot. So therefore deep dive is something that you should always be very, very careful about, and go very deep into any story, any problem that you're going to solve, right? Read and write, a very basic trait, for a lot of, so I told you, in any structured organization, in a PM role, 80% of your job is about writing various documents. And therefore, if we feel that writing is not something that we love, probably a PM job could be a challenging job for us, right? So I feel, at times, some of you may disagree with this, because in some startups or in some organization, it's not that much. But I feel it always helps, because that gives you clarity, and basically it facilitate you to take more correct decisions rather taking wrong decision and learning by it, right? So now coming to the main theme of this, being data driven, right? So what is data, right? Here I have segregated this into various things, that what data is, right? So data is any feedback that we collect from our customer. Again, customer is internal and external both, right? So when I'm thinking about anything, we must collect feedback from internal stakeholders as well. Many PMs I've seen, and ultimately business is not about making your customer super happy. It is also about that, hey, how I'm going to monetize, right? How my revenue is going to grow, how my user engagement is going to grow, what are the top key challenges that my business is facing, am I solving that or not? Because if I'll not solve that, even if I have are very happy, I'm not my business, my product is not going to survive. And therefore you must have seen that many products which are great products fail, because they're not able to relate uh, directly with business goals, which is very, very important. Only innovation which cannot be monetized is very difficult, that rare that it helps. So therefore we always should be aware of that. Are we aware of, do we know our internal stakeholders very deeply or not? Analytics, which always you must be already capturing, that Google Analytics or any tool that you're using, which tells you the entire behavior of the user journey, how they're using, how many people are using which feature, which feature is not being used, right? All that, the entire analytics, industry trends, right? We should know, for example, if our homepage dropout rate is, say, X percentage, you should have some benchmark to relate. Is it good, is it bad, right? So until unless you are not aware of industry trends, you will not be able to relate that, is your success metrics very good, very bad, or it's average, right? So it's very important to be aware of industry trends. News, normal news, that what kind of products are coming, what is happening in the industry, how AI is helping different products, right? How machine learning is help. People just listen about machine learning, but ultimately you have to go and learn a lot of case studies, that how ML helped various product improve various success metrics, right? So that deep you have to go, and specific studies, specific case studies you have to refer to, right? And competition, obviously you should be aware of that, how your competition is behaving, but yes, you should never get carried away by them, because at times there is a very thin line between your product and your competition. So you should always be very clear that what's your goal, but still it's always good to be aware that what competition is doing. So these are the very primary data that always should be handy with you. uh, Now there is something called funnel metrics, right? In my various interviews, people say that people give a scenario and say that, hey, just build a funnel metrics. I remember in my Amazon interviews, the engineering manager asking me to whiteboard and create a funnel metrics for Kindle, right? And in many interviews, we I have experienced that when I was taking interviews, people don't understand this very clearly. Although this is a very basic thing, I feel, but at times they're not able to relate it very clearly and in a correct manner, right? So funnel metrics is something that allow you to track the flow, that how the flow is happening, how the user journey is going through, right? And you should have a daily dashboard, because there are so many data, a huge number of data, and you can't be living with all data at a time, right? You will get confused. Therefore, you have to build a dashboard saying that, hey, these are the 5 top metrics, these are the 10 top metrics that will tell me the health of my product, right? What is going good, what is not going good, right? So that dashboard is very, very important. Otherwise, in Google Analytics, if you'll see, there's so many data, and if you'll put all the data in front of your stakeholders, you will confuse them, or they will not be able to interpret anything from that raw data. So you have to have a very clearly designed dashboard, data dashboard, right? And the third thing is that flag it. You should know that, hey, this data is trending red now. Now, how you define that it is trending red is not green, right? So that level has to be defined very, very smartly, and you can't be overwhelming there. You can't say that, hey, i will I will try to reduce this data by 50%. Maybe that 50% is not at all possible in next 1 year, right? So you should be very clear about understanding that way to flag it to be good, to be bad, right? That is a very, very important thing, that whether it's red or green, you should have a very clearly defined, a very clear definition about that, right? Now, a small case I've given you here, which says that, hey, define the booking funnel metrics of Ola, right? How will you define? So in a very raw manner, I have given example here, that I have to see that, hey, from which city, how many users are logging, how many visitors do I have, right? What is the dropout rate? How many, maybe 1 lakh user came, and 40,000 immediately, within just 15 seconds, they dropped out, right? So I should know that, how it is going city wise, right? And then select different start, right? What is the origin that they have selected, right? Select the destination. How many of them have selected the destination? Many of them will drop out before that, right? So this journey, then how many viewed fare and then dropped out, right? How many people saw the category, like, mini, and particularly changed it from mini to, say, after seeing the fare, when they saw that, hey, there's just 50 rupees difference between a mini and a prime, they purposely selected prime. This behavior is very important to capture, because that will help you build various features, for these users, right? Clicked on the book, how many people clicked on the book, then again dropped out right after that, canceled, trip started, right? So this, you can, I think, you can read it out. So this is what meant by funnel metrics, right? So you should always be taking various examples and try doing that, creating the funnel metrics of any product. For example, take any Spotify, right? And try to build, that, hey, what is the funnel metric that I should have and I should be capturing. So this is about, capturing the data. If you don't have all the key data captured, you can't analyze the behavior, at different point in time in the journey, right? So therefore, this is about capturing the whole data, the whole journey, in a very, very smart manner. Now, this is a very important thing, goals. Many people can get confused with this. Many people understand that a goal is there, but they exactly don't have a clarity that how to define a goal, right? And that's what I want to cover here, because it's, as I said, you have to be data driven. So first is, all the actions must be mapped with top goals. Whatever a PM is working on, if your 10 of the activities that you're doing, if it is not impacting any of your goals, then probably you are going in a wrong direction, right? You will do a lot of things, you will do good also, but the business will feel that, hey, you haven't done, contributed in a positive manner. And that is where many PM thinks that, hey, why people are not happy, why they feel, my product is not doing well, because they expect something else which probably you are not able to connect with. And it's totally fine to live with some issues, right? This is again a very important thing. Many people get worried, many stakeholders send you feedback saying that, hey, this is not working, this experience is very bad, the cart experience is not good, hey, this background color is not very intuitive, right? Various problem comes to you. As a product owner, it is very important for us to digest all these things in a very, very calm manner, very, very smooth manner. We should not get worried about, hey, so many, I have got 100 list of feedback suggestions. You should not be worried about that at all, right? Because you can't solve everything at a time, right? So therefore I say it's totally fine to live with some issues, right? If it's not impacting our business goal, right? If you know that, then the moment any business owner tells you, saying that, hey, this is not a good experience, you can immediately answer him back saying that, hey, not a problem, because this is not impacting our business goal for this quarter. And that answers, after that, there is no plot that they can add on, right? So it's okay to invite feedback, let them contribute, but you should never get worried about all the suggestions that they are making. And that's where you have to be very specific about. Goals must be specific and never hypothetical, right? For example, you can see the first example where I say we will improve the UX of our app or website to make users happy. Now this is very hypothetical. There is nothing which can be, how will you measure the happiness, right? So many people have seen drafting a goal like this, and in various interviews, especially if you will go to a core product company, they will expect you to frame a goal instantly, right? So you should be very clear how to define a goal. Like second example, you can see we will reduce the rate of complaints by X percentage, right? So this also is not that sufficient. However, it is little better because it tells by X percentage, but it doesn't tell you by when, in another 1 month, 6 months, 2 quarters, or what, right? So it should be. So see the third example, we will reduce the rate of complaints by X percentage in quarter 5 this year. That's specific. It tells you that, okay, I will improve it by 5%, right? And the moment if you will define this, then it's very obvious that you should know what is the current data, what is the rate of complaints at this point in time. So if it is X, you will make it Y. Be very careful in defining this difference. You can't suddenly make a magic and improve something by 50%. So if you are defining, saying that, hey, I will improve this by 20, from 27% to say 50%, just think about that. Are you taking a very, very overwhelming goal? Is it really practical? Have right maths behind it, right? Or is it because your boss or your engineer manager or your CEO expects it? If yes, then don't expect that. Don't accept that, because you can't do magic, right? So last one, you can see that we will increase the LTV. LTV is lifetime value. I think you all must be aware that what is lifetime value. If not, I can cover that later. From X in this date. So you can see that X in DD, right? So this is a complete goal. This is how a VP level goal at Amazon, is framed. So which say that, hey, my LTV is from X. So it was X in this time, right? Say, let's say end of the quarter 3, it is this much, and I will improve it to Y1% by this quarter, right? So it clearly tells the difference, improvement, and the duration in which I will make that impact, right? This is totally specific. The moment you have to define a goal this much specific, then you have to do a very deep maths. Otherwise, you can't put the value of X and Y here. You can't. So therefore, if you're able to put it in with the right maths, that means you have done a right job. You have done the right maths. You have done deep dive into the data. You have the right data along with you, right? And that will help you succeed, take more right decisions, right? So defining success metrics, right? This is something which say that, hey, what to impact? You should know. We are building so many features, and just because my boss asked or someone asked, I can't be building a feature. That's not a product manager's job, right? So we should know that what is I'm going to impact, right? So the first is adoption rate. That if I'm creating anything, any feature, I should define that how will I capture the adoption rate for this feature. If you don't have, many times what happens is you define just the feature, but you fail to include for the engineers, saying that, hey, I want these metrics to be tracked, then that is a wrong thing. So as a product owner, you should always define a product. In the PRD itself, you should include that, hey, these are the metrics that I want to be captured, so that later they can't tell you saying that, hey, I'm not capturing the click on this feature. Then because that will make your life difficult, right? So when you're defining a product, a functionality, never forget to define the right metrics to be captured for, which will help you measure the impact of that particular feature. So the adoption rate is one thing. Impact on the why factor, which I said in the first slide, that why are you building this, right? So dropout rate, for example, so the two examples I've given, the dropout rate on homepage is reduced by X percentage, right? So maybe you are building some feature because you want to reduce the dropout rate, and that's the core fund, focus for you in that quarter, right? Visitors, leads to visitors to lead generation, or you say in a marketplace model something called look to book ratio, right? So what is the look to book ratio? Because that is the direct business impact, that how many people came and how many booked the ticket on yatra.com, right? That's the exact something that is going to decide your business, that how much business are you doing. So if you're building anything to improve this, be very careful that is it how it is going to impact. So if you will think this manner, and then you will define the feature, in most of the cases you will end up taking a right decision. You will not simply think about a very hypothetical scenario. That won't help you, right? Impact on the top business, like revenue. So many people will tell you that as a product owner you have to impact the revenue. Now how will you do that, right? So there are ways to, so like I said, look to book, in some indirect way, by reducing the dropout. If I have increased the look to book ratio, that means I have indirectly impacted the revenue of the company. And there are many more features through which we drive revenue for example, at Ola, at Oyo, for all the visitors who were used to come to Oyo site, we used to see that how out of the total visitors, how many end up booking a room, right? Now that is your conversion. And as a product owner, we should know that which all improvements, functionality, features can help me improve this. That is how you can directly impact the business, and you can make your internal stakeholders happy, right? Impact on UX is one of the very important stakeholder for us, and we should know how to deal with them, because UX folks feels that they are the champion of user experience, which is correct, that they know that what is the right way to build a feature. But probably it's the responsibility of a product owner to decide, is that user experience, should I invest in that user experience at this stage or not? That is something which should be decided by the product owner. And that's why product owner decides that, okay, I'll be investing on my homepage user experience, or I'll not be investing in that in this quarter. So you should know that how to deal with UX. You should make your UX aware that, hey, these are the bad user experience, but it's okay because it is not impacting my business goals, and therefore we should invest and focus on some other part of the user experience, right? So that alignment is very, very important, right? So now this is an example that I've given, a very specific example. And this example I'm giving you, which was a 3 months exercise that I did where a direct VP of Amazon was involved, right? And it's very rare that a VP is directly involved in any of the exercise. But there was a friction analysis of Kindle where a VP was himself involved, and that's why I thought of creating that model, sharing that model with all of you, right? So this is how you drive your roadmap, because at the end of the day, for a product owner, people see that, hey, is your product roadmap ready? All engineering, there are 50 developers, all are looking at you, saying that, hey, what needs to be built next, right? Everybody will come to you, ask you. So are you prepared for that? You are giving the answer to each developer, saying that, yes, these are the features we are going to work next. And then they will challenge you, hey, why are we working on this? So this is the approach to solve that problem. First is, you should have always a long list, right? Long list is something where you should always welcome all internal stakeholders and external to come and contribute their ideas. We used to do something called office hours. That was a fortnight, meeting invite that I had with all the stakeholders. And what happens is, in that session, anybody can come and share their ideas. Because what happens is, you must have seen this, that in the office, anytime someone will tell you with some idea which troubles you, it is a problem for a product owner, because so many people will keep coming to you, approaching you with so many ideas. For you, it is very difficult to answer and react and respond to it. Therefore, before they do that and trouble you, you create an office hour, which can be a monthly or a weekly. It depends upon your organization and how big your stakeholder team is. And then you allow everybody to come in that specific 2 hours or 1 hour, where you will be available and share their ideas, where you will have a very clearly defined way to submit an idea. So someone can't suddenly come and say that, hey, at Amazon, I'm planning to build a warehouse on space, right? So that's a good idea, but is it practical at this stage, right? So you should tell them that when you are coming with an idea, also tell me that what are you trying to impact. The moment you will define that clearly, stakeholders will come only when they have done their homework. They will certainly not come with anything and everything, right? And that will help you. And in a big organization, it is very, very useful, right? At the same time, they are happy that you are giving them a dedicated slot, where they can come and contribute to the roadmap, right? Next is inter-team, right? Inter-team is like, you are from some X team, you are, let's say from the supply team, and I'm from the demand team. Both functions work separately, right? So maybe I am the product owner only for demand side of it, and you are the product owner for the supply side of it. So what happens at times, there are some bandwidth that you should keep free for the other stakeholders, for the other team, and that is always needed, right? Which is not exactly your KRA, but you have to, have some bandwidth free for it. And similarly, you will also expect, them to build something for you. So therefore, that inter-team bandwidth you should always count, that, and so that you will keep some bandwidth free for that. Collaborate. This is, like, pull priorities from key stakeholders, right? Meet all your engineering leaders, business leaders, right? If you are in an enterprise business like B2B, meet your sales team a lot. Understand from that, hey, what is the problem that customers talks a lot? What can help them improve customer satisfaction, the CSAT level, right? Or in B2C, we call that as NPS, right? Net Promoter Score, right? How are you going to impact that NPS? So that collaboration is very important. Now, how to do this? One simple illustration I have given below. So in this table, you can see there is a long list, right? Item 1, 2, 3, it can be n number, it can be 200 items, right? Now, points, what happens is, you should define your prime KPIs, saying that, hey, my KPI is UX improvement, where I'll focus 10% is. My KPI is revenue improvement, that is look to book ratio, that I'll focus, say, 40%, because that's my most important KPI, right? So that 3 or 4 or 5 KPIs, you should first of all define that what is the feature going to impact. So you put that there, and then what happens is, for any item, you have to see, for example, item 1, let's say if it is improvement in cart feature, cart, right? Add to cart. Now you have to see that, hey, is it going to impact my KPI 1? Yes or no? If no, put 0. If yes, if it's too much, then put 3, right? So out of 3, you can rate, or out of 5, you can define your own maps for this. So put a, rating for each of the KPI that it is going to impact, and then basis that weightage, your aggregate points will come. This, when you will segregate, when you will sort it in the descending order, it will give you at a very large level that, hey, these are the top 5 or top 20, 50 items. So it will at least give you a shortlisted item. Then you have to dive deeper into those items and decide that which is more important and which is not, right? So this is an exercise that will help you, and you should actually create a format around it, and a very clearly defined formula for each of them, that how you are counting the weighted average. Why is it, KPI 1 is 40% and not 20%? So you should first take a buy-in of these 4 KPIs with the weightage from all your key stakeholders. Once you are done with that, then you need not to ask them for any of the roadmap items, because your formula will always answer that, and they will always be aligned with you, because you have defined the tenets, right? So I will request all of you to, think about it, and see if it can help you in your roadmap. uh, Now, few cases, I've covered a very basic thing, very standard things, which is important to be a good data-driven product manager. Now, I'm going to cover a few very specific case and think aloud with you, right? And later you can also share your opinion about those cases. Now, the case one, uh, I've taken the example of Big Basket. I've given a scenario that says that 27% of orders are dropped after adding to cart. Now, this is the scenario. This is the problem statement that you have, right? And you have to see that, hey, how can I solve this? The task is you are the PM for cart. What data will you look at to conclude whether the cart experience is causing this or not? If yes, then how much impact is it? Is it really eligible to to be a good roadmap item, right? Is it really, maybe the problem is something else and it is not in totally our hands. For example, I'll give you, uh, if your prices are very high in terms of price indexing, right? So if you have not done the price indexing, your price team, right, whoever is the pricing product owner, then obviously your dropout will be pretty high, right? Because people will use to your feature just to save their shortlisted item, but they will never buy it because they will see a better price somewhere else and they'll buy it. And this happens a lot, right? That is something where if you are the PM for cart, you can't do a lot about it. You have to flag it with the pricing team, saying that, hey, because of this data, it tells me that it is heavily impacted because of the pricing, and you have to work behind it, and then ensure that that product team takes that as a key important factor, right? But I'll give you some scenario that how I can think about it. So one is that probable reasons could be price mapping with competition, one thing, very obvious thing in this scenario. Then the second is card used for shortlisting, right? If you don't have a feature called that could be a feature gap where you don't have a feature to mark it as my favorite, right, or shortlisted item, right? If that feature is missing, people use the cart as a feature, as a tool to shortlist their buying decisions, right? So that means that there is a feature gap which is causing this much of dropout, right? And then you need to work on that feature if it is really impacting your key goal that I've defined before these slides, right? So the metrics which could help you take a right decision could be some of these. Definitely, we have to dive deeper and see the whole funnel to actually summarize it in a correct manner. But one is that time it stays in cart, right? Any product, how long is it staying in the cart, right? Maybe if it is staying for 10 days, then probably it was just it is something to do with probably they've used it for as a feature for adding favorite product, right? So that factor. But if you're not capturing that time, then that's a concern, right? So therefore I said in the beginning that capturing all the funnel, all the key metrics, all the behavior, all the clicks, that's very, very critical, right? Checkout time for these products, TP90, I think you must be aware of that, the percentile, 90th percentile. One more important thing I want to flag, which many product owners in a little smaller company at times miss. They start looking at average data. It is not a good practice. Average data could be misleading at times, and I'm sure that you must be aware of it, but still I'm just calling it out. So you should always look at the percentile. Never try to not refer average numbers a lot. It misleads, right? So this, now you can think about this scenario later. The purpose of this is just to think that, hey, if this problem comes, how will you think? And then if you will think about some data, what if you don't have that data captured? Then suddenly you can't today start capturing the data. Therefore, when you will do this practice, it will help you that where are you missing, what is lacking in the whole system, right? Case two, Ola. I'm taking the example of Ola. I'm saying that you are the PM responsible to launch Ola Share. I'm sure that you all must be aware of Ola Share, right? So you are the PM responsible to launch Ola Share product in any one city. Now see the scenario. In any one city, we have decided just to launch Ola Share, but we want to first launch it one city. Now the PM, as a PM, you have to decide which is that city where you should launch, right? Now the question is that which is what data you should look at, which will help you take a right answer. You can't simply say that, hey, Pune is the right city, right? Now what data? And I'll just to tell you, at Oyo we conducted a PM hiring event, which was for senior product owners and director of product also. And we had around 27 people, very good leaders, coming for the interview. But the worst part is that only two got selected in that, right? So it's little rigorous, the interviews in any of these product company. I'm sure that in your company also it must be very difficult, right? So this was one question that I asked in that event, right? And I was very surprised to see that many people were not able to instantly think, and never, people never expect the exact answer of any of these questions. They want to see your approach, that what all factor are you counting, how you are thinking loud, right? What you're thinking, are you going in the right direction or not? Is your approach correct? Is your thinking structured or very unstructured? You're doing a random thinking, right? If it will be random, any good leader will always hesitate to hire you, right? So you should know, you should first of all, think about the problem, do some, take some pen paper, take your notes, try to frame a story, take sufficient time, don't hesitate, right? And then start contributing to it. It's not that someone asked and you simply started telling the answer, saying that there's this. Don't start uttering all the possibilities that comes in your mind. That's never a good practice, especially for a product owner, right? You have to be very, very organized, right, in what you're saying. So this is a scenario. Right now I'll tell you, there can be many things, you can dive deeper into it, but just see a few factors that I'm covering here. Compare the rate of price sensitive users, right, in active Ola cities, which is X percentage of users dropped booking after viewing the fare, right? So do you have this data captured? If not, you'll be in a trouble, right? Because people will all run behind you, say that, hey, I want an answer to it. And if you don't have this data captured, you will be in a big problem, right? So therefore, capturing all these metrics, helps you. That's why I said, in the beginning, that data is your best friend for any product owner, right? So see this scenario. Uh, this can tell you that, okay, if the X percentage of people dropping out after seeing the fare in Bangalore versus Hyderabad versus Mumbai versus tier 2 cities like Jaipur, Lucknow, Patna, right? Uh, if there, you will when you will see these trend of different types of city, you will definitely get too much of insight about the behavior of that city, because every city behaves a little differently, right? It also depends upon that, for example, Mumbai is too expensive, right? Lodging is very expensive in Mumbai as compared to Bangalore, right? So therefore there are many things, commute expense differs a lot between different cities, right? So as a product owner, we should know that, we should be careful that are we capturing these data. You can't start thinking about these things when you get the problem in your hand. So therefore, at the initially itself, it is very important to define the right funnel and ensure that you're capturing all of them, because you never know that what scenario will come, in front of you, right? Second is that, look at the cities with maximum common trip, right, start time, right? That trend will also, when you will do that analysis, that will tell you that, hey, this trend is looking very different in, say, Chennai, or in a small city like Jaipur, right? And that insight will help you frame a structure and think that, hey, I feel that this city could be the right city to start with Ola Share launch, right? Definitely you have to think more, you have to see all these trends that will give you various insights. You have to go deeper into it, and then you will get your answers, right? So this is the same, thinking structure that you should follow while, you are giving interview in any core product driven company, right? And again, I'll repeat, in any interview, if someone asks you this kind of question, never start your answer instantly. That is one of the factor which troubles the interviewer a lot. It tells that, hey, you are not thinking, you are just telling whatever is coming in your mind. That's a very that's a very bad, we are very different from sales guy, right? So I'm not criticizing sales, but all, they have some other traits, we have something else, right? We should know our strengths. So never do that. Take sufficient time, think a lot, right? Write down, think this right factors impacting. Don't look at the wrong factors impacting that, data, right? If the person will see that yes, you are thinking in the right direction, you are extracting the right criteria to reach to the final answer, that means they're liking you. Now this is a very different problem, that I think you all should think, and at least I think a lot about myself, that you are a product manager with 12 years. This 12 could be 5, 4, whatever, right? This is your in level. What data will you look at to show the values that you bring? So you are a product owner, right? You have created your CV. How will you make your CV be very specific, that tells that, man, I'm the right, the product is in my DNA, right? The product management, right? I So if you're covering the right data in your CV, that as a product owner in last X years, what was the major impact where with that you bring, that which you drove, that will give insight to the reader, seeing that yes, man, this seems to be interesting. He's thinking very different, or he's thinking very specific, right? So you should also do this exercise, that what all have you done, right? It will be very interesting to think. I've given just a few examples here. Some possible data structure could be like, first I say experience to drive the product development, startup plus corporate, for 500,000 man hours. Now this looks, that, hey, what is this 5 lakh man hours? So you can calculate that if you have worked for 5 years, and on average you manage the roadmap of 20 developers, you can easily and you as a product owner, you are driving the whole, roadmap. So that means you are driving these many X man hours, right, of the developers. This is a big stuff. This tells you that, man, I have dealt a lot with developers, right? Which is a good data to look at, right? Which anybody will understand that, any fresher cannot have this data, which is okay. But if you are experienced, think about, now this might not be very appropriate for in your case, which is okay. I'm just giving you a direction, that try to find out the right data like this, that where you are creating an impact, and always try to mention that, in your portfolio. It will help. Like, I say that own the B2C product users of X user hours, right? So that tells that, hey, I had these many users, right, for my product, and that, average use time, uh, average time that they use the product. With that, and you have to go specific. Don't give any data which you will not be able to justify. To reach to fill the value of X, do the right maths, do the right whiteboarding, think deeply, and then get. But I'm sure that this, if you do, it will give a very different perspective to the hiring team, right? You say that I have owned 250 plus product releases. Now that itself is that, handling so many product releases ensures that tells indirectly that you have seen the challenges. You have seen that, because after every launch, after every sprint, there is a retrospective which is done, right? You must be aware, right, in agile development. Now in retro, we think that, hey, if you have participated in so many sprint planning, in so many retros, right, that tells the experience that you carry, that tells that, your learning is much more, right? So think about, more such data, and don't look at so many data. It should not be more than 4 or 5. Just think about 4 or 5 big data, and make that as the make it, in a bold, let it appear in a bold in your profile. It will help a lot. It will give a good perspective. Now this is a thing that I want to say, that chase the right metric. Many people keep running here and there with so many data, right? And at times, I've seen many of them running with wrong data, wrong metrics, which impacts you, which spoils your whole entire roadmap, right? And again, I'll tell you, you can't make everybody happy, right, at a time. So therefore you should never be worried about that at all, right? You should know that, okay, out of these 100, I can only deliver these 10, and this is my focus, but I will do this in the best manner, in the most data driven manner. That will project your you as a strong product owner, right? So that's why I'm saying that 9 women can't make a baby in 1 month, right? Right. So you can't see that, boss, I will do a lot of things, just by putting more developers to it, you will do all changes at a time. You can't do that. That's not a right approach to do, right? Because after every release you learn, and then you again implement that in the next release. So first is, don't get lost in the ocean of metrics. You will have so many. People will tell you many metrics. That's why I showed you that table wala structure that will help you relate, understand that which is the right metrics uh, to look at, right? No top organizational goals. This is very important. You should know that, is your top business goal about more user acquisition or about more monetization? That's the two major things, right? Is your company at this point in time, for example, WhatsApp initially were never running behind monetization, right? So, but now with various things, they are probably running behind that as well, right? So you should always know that what is your product running after at this point in time, and focus there. And it's totally fine to disagree with stakeholders. That's also, you should know that there's no problem, if you're disagreeing with your stakeholder. But to disagree, if you're disagreeing without numbers, that will be termed as argument, right? And that is a bad thing for any PM to do. But if you're disagreeing with the right metrics that you have, with the right maths you have, that is always taken positive. And people respect you. They feel that, yes, he is a data driven, he helps me take the right decision, he stops me to take a wrong decision. That is what is the quality of a product owner, right? So these are the key things I have covered in this session. I think any of one of you, if you want to add or share your particular any specific experience or anything, if you want to ask, yeah, we are open for that. Now, once again, few people joined later, so again I'll repeat. We have started this session from this time onwards. I'm calling this as Potterbox group. I want you all to be part of this group. We will create some. I will collaborate. I'll send a mail to you. I will take. I will ensure that you all contribute to that. And maybe any one of you can come forward and say that, hey, next session probably Rishi, we both can have together, and we will work on that session. We will create the content and we will present, right? Or we can do some real whiteboarding in the next session, right? So think about, keep sharing. I will create a group also where we all can exchange, and anybody can own to present the next session. It's not that only I have to do, or it can be a group session as well, right? So I just said that intent. Now, if any one of you wants to ask any question, or if you want to contribute any of your experience about where any wrong data that you felt was misleading, right? Or any data that helped you take a right decision, yeah, you can. I will. It will be lovely if you can share. Any one of you can share that. Like Amit is experienced, I think you can share something. Srinivas, if you have anything, any one of you. Shrimi is there. Any one of you can.
Hi, this is Amit here. I believe you have
Hi.
covered everything pretty well in pretty short period of time. And thank you for that. Although
Okay.
I'd love to be part of the message, and however my bandwidth is too tight to be involved there at this point of time. But maybe
Okay.
sometime later, we meet it and try to be a part of it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Great. Great. Good to know that. Yeah. Yeah. Is Devendra there in this meeting? I'm not sure if Devendra has joined. So Devendra is a good friend of mine. He's from engineering team, and he's from Microsoft, right? I am, trying to conduct a next session, where I'll trying to bring Devendra to conduct that session along with me, because how we deal with engineering team is very very important, and that is something which if you are not doing in the right manner, uh, it's very difficult. Your life as a product manager becomes very difficult, right? So Devendra, because he's a very good engineering leader, I will bring him in the next session where he will share his opinion, his experience about that. Hey, how, what kind of product leaders they love to interact with, what they like, what they don't like, right? And it's not that if they don't like it, we, for example, if they don't like, us to be pushing behind some releases, we should not be worried about that. But maybe his experience will help all of us to understand that what can be the better way to deal with an engineering team, which is very very important, right? And for example, if you'll go to companies like Ola or Swiggy, the engineering team are most of the time the product owners are reporting to the engineering managers, right? And therefore you have to be very very clear how to deal, how to ensure that you are in right sync with all the engineering team. For example, I'll tell you, doing a regular one-on-one meeting with key engineering leader is something, that you must be doing. If you're not doing, you should start doing that a lot, right? Uh, then a group meeting. For example, you have created a roadmap for the next quarter, and before throwing it with the very senior management and all, probably you can invite the engineering team and discuss your roadmap with them. At times that helps a lot, because then what happens is the engineering team feels that you are not giving them a roadmap and imposing that roadmap on them, saying that hey, you have to just build that. Rather, you are trying to make them contribute to build the right roadmap, right? The moment they will get that feeling, they will be very different with you. If for example some of them give you, and at times they will give you very good ideas which probably you could have missed, right? And that will add a very good item in your roadmap, which again is a very big thing, a very good help for a product owner, right? So it's very good to throw your initial roadmap plan with the engineering team, see how they react to it. Many strong engineers simply react to it saying that hey, I feel these three items are not making any sense. Now in that case, either you will have the right data to convince him, or you will listen to his, if you have really missed out, that is the right time to that, it gets flagged, it's called out. And there's nothing wrong in learning that okay, probably you missed it, right? So that will help you mature your roadmap before you present it to the key stakeholders, right, outside your own org, right? So do that a lot. I said that collaboration is one of the key factor. Even if you're very good at understand engineering understanding, you're good in technology, you're good in doc writing, but despite of all these things, if you are not doing right collaboration, it's very difficult to succeed in a big organization. That collaboration is something you have to do, and you should know that so therefore knowing that how to do one-on-one meetings with key stakeholders, how to do fortnightly meetings, how to do a product workshop. In that workshop you can invite all the stakeholders to come, you can decide the theme, right, and let everybody contribute to it, right? It can be a brainstorming session. You can take initiative of running ideathon, a hackathon and all, right? Always beyond your roadmap, always keep taking such initiative which shows your innovative nature, seeing that hey, you are trying to extract some innovative ideas as well, right? For which you should keep doing some hackathons and all. And taking such initiative is very very important for a product owner, right? So yeah, I think that's it from my side.
I
uh,
have a question, Rishi. I have a
yeah,
question.
yeah, Srinivas.
So let us say now let's say there's a triangular vector. If at all we draw, if there's engineering, there's product, and there's design.
Yeah.
So is it important for the product guy to first work with design and then hand over it to engineering, or how does it work out? If I have to ask that question.
Okay. Now, okay, fine. Very good question. So I will say this way. To get this answer, I showed you that slide, no, where you have to define your KPIs, right?
Correct.
Right now, if you have done that exercise, see this one. If you know that at this point in time, what is the weightage of UX, for you? And so you said UX and what engineering team, right? UX versus
Yes.
engineering, you said, right? So
Yes.
I
Design.
feel that it depends upon the nature of the product. For example, the example that I gave you, like where to launch Ola, or if you want to build a new feature like share feature, or you are conducting a campaign manager or referral program, right? So it
Okay.
depends upon the kind of nature. Now, for example, if you're planning to launch a referral program, UX is very important in that, right? More than engineering, UX is important there, right?
Good.
Because how to make audience adopt that referral program is highly dependent on the user experience that your feature is going to give, right? For example, when you end your trip in Ola versus Uber, they ask you to rate their experience, your experience, right? Where they capture the NPS, net promoter score, right? So to answer your question, it totally depends that what kind of product. Now, for example, if you are thinking about let me give you an example. You are struggling with too much of dropout from your homepage, right?
Okay.
Now, one of the problem could be the performance issue, that the page loading time is too much,
Got
right?
it.
Now, if this is the problem, then probably engineering is someone you should approach first,
Got
right?
it.
So think that for that particular problem that you're going to solve, that feature, which is the right team. Is it at times it can be both. It's not that even if you were taking the first insight from engineering, you should not ignore UX, right? However,
Correct.
as a product owner, we should also be comfortable with the basics of user experience. Like, we should
Correct.
know that how to do heuristic evaluation, right? The basic
Correct.
stuff of UX, that always helps to build to earn trust from the UX department. Otherwise, UX feels that they are the champion, we feel that we are the champion, and at times there is a fight, indirect fight, right? So
Correct.
so if we know those basics, it actually helps us earn their trust, and then get their right insight, right? So I hope I answered your question, that it depends upon the nature of the feature that you're building. Basis that you can decide that which is the more important. For example, performance thing, definitely you have to work deeply with the engineering team, saying that, hey, why the loading time is so much? How have
Correct.
you done image optimization, for example, right?
Correct.
In my company,
Correct.
as of now, actually we are struggling with that, right? That because of
Got it.
the loading time, and now we have reduced the loading time, and it has improved our metrics in a big manner, right?
Got it.
So
Got it.
that's my answer to it. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you so much,
Great
Rishi.
question
Thank you.
though. Yeah. Yeah. If you want, you can also share any of your experience, because we have some 5-10 minutes left. So any particular experience, or
Yeah.
any
Current.
scenario where you had a problem to deal with engineering team or any team, probably you can share that challenging time, and I'll try to answer you that where you could have done better.
Sure. I don't know. I don't know if this question is right for the audience. I'm just building a new product, new MVP now. So I'm very new to this entire story of product management and design and entrepreneurship. So we started researching. We spoke to around 100 customers in the market, because whom we know personally. We listed down the top five, important things which a customer is looking for, which is beneficial for them, and then started building a product. Now, the biggest problem, mistake which I made is, I went to engineering team without having the zero experience on design, and actually framing a story. I think you nailed it there, writing the story, right?
Yeah.
So I went with maybe half baked structure, and the engineering team made a disaster out of it. So first,
Okay.
my first 2.5 months just went and whitewash it was for me. Then I
Okay.
understood it's very important for me to explain things. I started writing, as you said, mentioned Rishi.
You
I
have to.
started writing and started giving flow diagrams, and I started using very interesting softwares. Started designing the entire user story.
Okay.
Now I am coming up with my second, diagram, and then I have given it to my engineering team now. So there's a great lesson for me on how important it is to write stories, write use cases, and then work with design team and make the entire workflow properly, showcase it in a Adobe XD wireframe or so, and then hand over it to engineering team to build the product. So some lesson which I have learned. I'm sure there's a long way for me to go, but some baby steps in the initial phase, Rishi. That is why I have joined this session to learn more on this entire
Great, great, great.
process.
Great. So just to add the point that you're making here, there's something called, working backwards. Like, there is a provision of writing a press release at Amazon. Any good idea, any good feature, the approach is, the framework that they follow is, that you as a product owner need to write a press release, right? And
Okay.
as a PM, in many interviews also, if you will give any interview at many places these days, people will ask you to draft a press release. Now people get confused that, hey, what this, maybe many of you are aware of, but that's something you should definitely refer to. And I'll be glad to conduct a session, on that, because that's the primary thing, at Amazon. If you can't write a very good press release, you can never succeed there, because your feature will never get the you will never be able to get the engineering bandwidth without, until unless you have written a great, you know a press release document that is called working. So that tells you, in brief, I'll tell you, it is about that you are developing a feature, like you are developing a product now. You will launch it in, say, 3 months or 6 months from now, or 1 year from now. Think that when you will launch that product, right, uh, and you are covering a story, right, just one page. It cannot be more than one page. In one page you have to cover the story where someone is calling out the impact your product is making on them, right? That how it helped, to whom it helped, and how, right, how it is building. So first of all, you have to write. If you are not able to think of that story at this point in time, that means there is a gap in your thinking still. You have to still
Got
think that, hey, probably your idea is not complete then, right? So
got
try
it.
to think about that, after, when you are launching your product after 1 year, in just one page you have to draft that, hey, this is the success story which will be published, right? What will be that? What they'll be, you should have something great to be covered there, right? Otherwise you can't simply talk about so many features there. So what is that 2 3 things that you can talk about that will give you clarity, saying that yes, this is going to be a great story what I'm building, and then you will work backwards toward it, right? So,
Understood.
and this one page is supported by a FAQ, frequently asked question, right? So the
Got it.
first page is the story, and then FAQs is in that FAQs you cover various questions that a person can think about after reading that story. Probably people will think about that. Hey, how are you doing this? For example, there are many products coming for the recruitment which is using AI, right? Now they will simply cover a story. Now in FAQ you will cover the detailing of it, that hey, how this AI is built, which framework are you using, which technology are you using, right? All the detailing, for which market it is launched, right? Is it for tier 1 city, is it for tier, all the possible question that the reader of that story can think of, you have to cover in the FAQs, right? So people will read just one page. And so try doing that. There are many content available on internet around it, but if people will feel, we can have a detailed session where I can show some of the good, press release document, to all of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Oh, great. So someone asked just now the question that, they joined late in the meeting. Will this recording be available? So yes, this session I have recorded in Google Meet, and I will publish that and share that link with all of you, right? Obviously, I request all of you to give your feedback to me on that, forum also, on LinkedIn also, so that it uh, helps me, understand that where it went well, or where can we do better. And also, if you can suggest, any theme for the next session, be it anything about product, engineering, and UX, right? Anything about theme about that, if you have, I'll be able to cover that. So think about that, and probably you can share those that feedback, saying that, hey, can we have this theme for the next session? And if any one of you would like to conduct that session, I can work with him or her closely and ensure that you run that session, and I can support you the way you want me to. Yeah. So I think, yeah, we are done. If there are no more questions, we are done. I'll wait for your feedback, right, and also your suggestion, and also request some of you to come forward and show, your, interest in conducting next, maybe after 2 months, but you can decide now itself, right? And we can work together to build that theme together. Yeah. Great. Thanks, Pradeep. Thanks for that. Thanks, Srinivas. So I'll be, available on this, till 3:30. because after that I have a different meeting. Whoever, anyone, I'm sure that you will have a busy schedule, so you can leave the meeting, if you're done. And yeah, whoever wants to still ask question, feel free to.
Hey, Rishi Amit, this side.
Yeah, Amit.
So just want to let you know that I will be connecting with you offline.
Okay.
At the initial part of the webinar, you stated something about architect and your interest in the idea. And I'm doing pretty intense work in agri-tech, so probably that would be a good decision. I just wanted to let you know.
Your voice is breaking, Amit. Sorry, I can't hear you. Can you repeat?
So at the start of the webinar, you had mentioned about agri-tech and your work involved into agri-tech field. So
Okay. Right.
I'm doing a pretty intense work in agri-tech and agri-tech automation. So in that case, I would try to connect with you
Okay.
offline, and probably that can be some surprise.
Definitely. Would love to. Yeah, yeah. I'll surely ping you offline, and then we can discuss about
Sure.
agri-tech
Thank you, Rishi.
together.
I'm
Yeah.
logging off now. Have
But
a great day. Thank you so much.
sure. Thanks a lot, Amit, for taking out time. Thank you. And I think there are no questions, so we can close this session. Request once again all of you to share your feedback, in that group, and that will help us. Uh, and then, if you have any questions even after this, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and we will connect, and I'll be happy to help you, any one of you, or we can have a discussion on any topic. It always helps, right? Great, folks. So once again, thanks to everybody, and I think we will close the session now. Yeah. Thank you. A big thanks to all of you. Thank you.